Makayla Jordan stood center stage, not because they believed in her, but because they wanted to humiliate her. The crowd laughed, cameras rolled, and one judge whispered, "This'll be fun." But when Makayla sang, her voice shattered every smug smile in the room. Then the lights went out. Was it sabotage or something worse? Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel, and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. They didn't pick her to sing. They picked her to humiliate her. The gravel road curved like a ribbon through the pine-lined hills of upstate New York, ending at the pristine white gates of Howridge Conservatory. It wasn't a school. It was a kingdom. With its polished glass practice halls, triple-tiered amphitheater, and a rumor that Beyoncé once donated anonymously, Howridge was a temple to talent, but only a certain kind. Makayla Jordan stepped off the charter bus gripping her backpack like a shield. Her sneakers, worn and handled, crunched against the white gravel as a gust of wind carried the scent of pine and possibility. She was 17, shoulders hunched from years of learning to take up less space, voice tucked inside her like a secret. Her mother had packed her bags with pride. Her father had packed them with warnings. They'll love your voice, but they won't love you, baby. The camp director, Mr. Lanning, greeted newcomers with a rehearsed warmth. His eyes flicked past Makayla, like she was an asterisk in a spreadsheet. All around her, white kids hugged, laughed, name-dropped prep schools, and private voice coaches. Her name was just a brief silence in their conversation. Her bunkmate, Elena Brooks, was racially ambiguous in a way that didn't cause confusion. Light-skinned, soft curls, designer shoes. She gave Makayla a tight-lipped smile and immediately plugged in her earbuds. No words, just boundaries. Makayla's presence rippled through the camp like a glitch in the system. At breakfast, conversations halted when she passed. At rehearsals, pianists skipped her on the cue. She wasn't just ignored. She was watched, as if waiting for her to stumble so the silence could finally be filled with laughter. By the third day, the whispered jokes began. She probably sings gospel, like at barbecues or whatever. I heard she won some church contest. Doesn't count. They called her Church Girl, Project Beyoncé, token. But Makayla stayed quiet. She always had. Her mama taught her that silence was armor. Then came the open auditions. It was meant to be low stakes. Just a fun showcase warm-up. A chance for students to perform something informal, get noticed, maybe land a solo in the final gala. The auditorium buzzed with nerves and competition. Kids performed watered-down Broadway numbers, pop covers, over-polished jazz riffs. Makayla stayed seated in the back row, fingers clenched in her lap. She hadn't signed up. She knew better. But the spotlight was never neutral. Not in rooms like this. From the center row, Savannah Klein, platinum blonde, Upper East Side, voice trained by someone who charged $300 an hour, turned to the judge's table. She pointed at Makayla, with the subtle cruelty of someone who'd done it before. What about her? She chirped. Let's hear Church Girl. For diversity or whatever. The judges laughed. One, a young man with square glasses and tired eyes, glanced toward Makayla. Sure, he said dryly. Why not? Makayla froze. Her throat tightened. She heard the girls behind her giggle. Heard someone whisper, "This'll be good." For a moment, she thought about saying no. She thought about standing and walking straight out of the room. But something heavier moved in her chest. A heat. A sharpness. The words of her grandmother came back to her. When they expect silence, give them a song they'll never forget. She stood. The auditorium hushed. She didn't walk. She floated toward the stage, trembling, but each step anchored by generations of women who were never allowed in these rooms. The mic stood like a dare. Makayla didn't greet the judges. She didn't announce her name. She simply looked at the accompanist and shook her head. No music. Then she opened her mouth. The first line of Strange Fruit escaped like a ghost. Southern trees bear a strange fruit. The room changed temperature. Her voice wasn't perfect. It was wounded. It cracked, trembled, expanded. It carried pain she had no words for. Pain passed down. Pain inherited. Students who had laughed minutes ago were now staring, frozen. The air seemed to thicken as her voice spiraled through the hall, soaked in rage and sorrow. Her vibrato echoed off the walls. Even the judges looked up. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root. You could hear someone gasp. Not from fear, but from recognition. She wasn't singing for a prize. She was testifying. Even Savannah's jaw slackened slightly. Makayla closed her eyes as she reached the final note, holding it for a second longer than necessary. a challenge to anyone who still thought this was a joke. Then silence. No applause, just stillness. Uneasy. Electric. The judges stared at each other. One of them dropped his pen. Makayla stepped back from the mic and turned. She didn't wait for permission. She returned to her seat and sat with the same quiet grace she always had. Behind her, the judges whispered. The auditorium, still stunned, began to murmur. Savannah leaned toward Elena. She's still not special, she hissed. She just got lucky. Elena didn't respond. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Lanning stood and spoke into the mic. Makayla Jordan, please return to the stage. Makayla's head turned slowly. The room stirred. The judges were now standing too, no longer laughing. Makayla stood up slowly, heart pounding as one judge lifted a sheet with her name written at the top. Her voice was undeniable, but they didn't want her in the spotlight. Makayla stood on stage, her pulse loud in her ears, as Mr. Lanning's voice echoed into the mic. Makayla Jordan, please return to the stage. The fluorescent lights bore down on her like a trial. She rose slowly, trying to control the shake in her knees, and walked forward with the same quiet dignity that had stunned the room minutes ago. The judges didn't smile. They didn't clap. They looked at her like a problem they hadn't planned for. Miss Jordan, said the judge with the glasses, clearing his throat. Your performance was unexpected, powerful, yes, but raw, unrefined. Another nodded, eyes flat. There's depth in your tone, but no formal training. Your style might not align with the showcase's direction. Makayla stared at them, saying nothing. What was she supposed to say? Sorry for making you feel something. However, the glasses judge added, we're placing you as an alternate for now. Should a finalist drop out, you'll be considered. Alternate. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. It was the hallway between applause and dismissal, a space designed to keep her close, but not too close. She nodded quietly and left the stage. Behind her, Savannah leaned back in her chair, arms folded, smirking. Her friends didn't even try to hide their laughter. Makayla returned to her bunk, shoulders tense, her fingers numb from clenching so tightly. As she entered, something felt off. Her pillow had been moved. Her dresser drawer was ajar. When she turned over the blanket, her stomach knotted. A sheet of paper sat where her head should have been. Handwritten, thick marker strokes. Singin' won't make you white. Below it, someone had sketched exaggerated lips, bulging eyes, and cornrows. Makayla froze. The blood drained from her face. Her ears rang with a familiar, hollow sound, the one that always came when someone tried to shrink her spirit. Behind her, the door creaked. Elena stepped in, earbuds out for once. She saw the note, hesitated, then looked away. Don't say anything, Elena said quietly, like she was reciting something she'd told herself 100 times. Just let it slide. If you push, it gets worse. Makayla didn't respond. She folded the paper, walked to the trash can, and dropped it in. But it didn't stop there. That night, on the camp's anonymous group chat app, a feature meant for late-night talent networking, Makayla's face appeared. Edited, mocked. A still from her performance, darkened and filtered to cartoonish extremes, with the caption, when your slave ancestors gave you one good note. Another meme followed, a close-up of her hair with the text, is it a song or a survival cry? Laughter emojis flooded the thread. Dozens of students engaged. Some added more memes. A few just sent clapping gifs, sarcastic applause. Makayla saw it all. She sat in her bunk, phone trembling in her hands, unable to blink. Her heart sank further with every scroll. She felt like she was underwater, watching people dissect her identity with gleeful precision. For a moment, she opened the messages from her mother. Small check-ins, Bible verses, a voice memo from her little brother. Her thumb hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. Instead, she got up and walked outside. The campus was quiet, moonlight casting silver on the manicured grass. She walked behind the chapel, where the old stone wall met a small circle of trees. She sat on the cold bench and cried without a sound. The tears didn't fall because of a note. They fell because deep down, a part of her had believed that maybe, if she was good enough, they'd see her. Instead, they'd watched her bleed on stage, and called it raw. She closed her eyes. And in the silence, her grandmother's voice returned. You ain't a problem, baby. You a mirror. They break you 'cause they scared of what they see. That voice, the one that raised her, fed her cornbread wisdom, and called her child of thunder when no one else saw her light. It reached through the noise. Makayla exhaled. Not everything deserved her energy. Not everyone deserved her voice. But she'd sing anyway. And she'd do it with so much truth, they'd never be able to pretend they didn't hear it. The next morning, announcements buzzed through the camp loudspeaker. The final showcase list would be posted by noon on the main board. Makayla didn't wait. She didn't hope. She went through the motions. Shower, breakfast, quiet corner in the library. No one spoke to her. By noon, the board was crowded. Dozens of students pushed forward, whispering, gasping. Savannah stood at the center scanning the list, her expression frozen. Then rage. "Wait, what the hell?" she shouted. Makayla approached slowly. She looked up at the board. 12 names under finalist performers. One of them was her, Makayla Jordan. Solo piece. Original arrangement TBA. Beside her name, a single note in parentheses. Advanced. Savannah's best friend, Carly Doon, had been cut. No explanation. No alternate position. Just removed. Makayla blinked. She wasn't the alternate anymore. She was a finalist. As Savannah stormed away in fury, Makayla turned and caught Elena staring at her with a strange mix of guilt and fear. A finalist slot earned through talent now feels like a trap. Makayla woke the next morning to a subtle equation. All eyes shifted toward her. The final suite had placed her name under Makayla Jordan. Elevated, but the glow of accomplishment felt shadowed by something darker. Her confidence, once a steady flame, flickered with every whispered name that floated down the hallway. Even sympathetic glances carried distance. She could feel the weight of being watched framed. At rehearsal, she stepped onto the stage under the soft glow of overhead lights. Pianists and vocal coaches eyed her as if she were a paradox, talented yet unwelcome. Behind her, Savannah and her clique clustered in the bleachers, texting furiously, glancing back with thin smiles. The camp buzzed with rumors. Some freshmen claimed she'd had help from a donor. Others swore she only got this far because she was a PR stunt. With every murmur, Makayla sank deeper into the hall's stare. Then, during lunch, her phone vibrated. A message simply read, "New video posted. Must see." She tapped it. What filled her screen was a clip that looked uncannily like her audition, but distorted. Her voice edited with auto-tune and laughter tracks. Her body warped in motion, appearing to sneer at the very audience who'd applauded seconds before. Those were followed by voice overlays. "She thinks she owns the show. Black girl thinks she's better." It was a deepfake, too polished, too curated, and horrifying in its realism. Makayla stared. The footage looked like evidence, like confession. Some viewers in the comments called it a rehearsal rant. Other viewers treated it as fact. Even her mother texted, "Is this you? I can't believe it." The HQ of her identity was shaking. She turned off her phone and left the dining hall. She couldn't taste anything anymore. Later that day, Mr. Lanning asked to see her in his office. The director's office smelled like old wood and polished varnish, the walls thick with framed accolades and performance photos, none of which featured her. He sat behind the desk, hands steepled. "Makayla," he began. His voice was calm. "I've seen that video. I understand this is unsettling. But I'm warning you, don't fuel drama. The camp can't have internal scandals." He paused. "Handle it quietly. I'd advise you to lay low. Don't respond publicly. Just disappear from the gossip." It felt like a threat, thinly veiled. He wanted her compliant. She understood. She left without a word. Outside, the campus sun was dying behind clouds. She walked past polished doors, past bulletin boards plastered with her name, next to the word finalist. Each sparkly letter now feeling like a brand she hadn't asked for. Each hallway echoed with silent questions, waiting to surface at nothing more than a whispered rumor. Makayla needed sanctuary. She slipped away from rehearsals that night, told no one she was gone. She walked to chapel, the same abandoned sanctuary from earlier. But tonight, the oil lamps burned as if held open just for her. The stained glass filtered moonlight, like fractured memory. She breathed deeply, the air thick with wood smoke and sorrow. She sat center stage, in that empty space, her only audience the vaulted ceiling. She began rehearsal, a medley of classical notes, scattered soulish runs, her voice rising and falling with subtlety and power. She recorded surreptitiously on her phone, one hand trembling. Each note was deliberate, each breath her own. Her voice bounced between rafters and stone, echoing a soft but fierce poetry, the kind of practice that forced her roots to dig deeper. She visualized judges' blank faces, trolls piling on her, Savannah laughing. She transformed every insult into a note, every rumor into harmony, every whispered doubt into vibration. With every bar she sang, tension grew. Inside her chest, and in the chapel's dark corners, she imagined being discovered, expelled. She imagined her voice turned against her again, in some vicious edit. Still she pressed on. Unbeknownst to her, a small security camera perched near the stained glass arch captured the entire rehearsal. It was old tech, silent and grainy, meant to deter vandals, not record future viralities. But it recorded her voice, raw and real. Weeks passed. She left chapel rehearsals mostly unseen. She returned each night, hooded, blending into the past. Her moods altered too. She began answering rehearsals in clipped tones. Avoiding Elena's eyes, she ducked into study halls alone. The confidence she once carried in her posture, straight back, steady gaze waned. She felt tension in her jaw, and fatigue in her lungs. The pressure of the finalist slot had become a cage. There were eyes waiting for her to fail. Then, only days before the final showcase, something unexpected happened. At breakfast she heard the entire camp buzzing. Some were excited, others scandalized. But not about her performance. It wasn't rumor or meme or audition. It was the chapel video. People were talking about some solo singer practicing in forbidden areas. A few older students showed cropped versions on their phones. They saw a hooded figure rehearsing, voice soaring into darkness. In hushed tones they whispered, "Who is this? They must be prepping illegally. This girl is desperate for attention." It was her. But she was anonymous. Enough people believed they'd caught a recluse, a rule breaker. Not the same girl the judges had named a finalist. The logic was twisted. They assumed guilt, not talent. They assumed performance, not authenticity. Makayla read the crossover comments in disbelief. She looked around the breakfast hall. Nobody was staring at her. They hadn't connected the chapel voice to the stage voice yet. The accident was her secret shield, but it was also a trap. She realized then. The same camera that recorded her confession of sorrow and power would soon record her downfall, or her rise. She closed her eye. The stakes had shifted. She had become two stories. The polished finalist, and the quiet contender in the chapel. Neither narrative under her control. In that moment, determination coiled inside her chest. She would sing, but on her own terms. Unexpected twist. Mr. Lanning called a rehearsal early that afternoon, and publicly announced, "Makayla, we've decided to review your alternate performance." His tone implied trial, not trust. She realized the camp had gathered every bit of rumor, memed clip and chapel footage, and they planned a secret hearing. Makayla's heart pounded. That night, as she practiced in the chapel again, she noticed fresh footprints in the dusty aisle, and a camera lens blinking at her from the organ loft. Her gift is seen by the world, but twisted into a scandal. The chapel had become her confessional, her laboratory, her sanctuary. But on the fourth night, as Makayla's voice filled the ancient hall again, something changed. A click echoed from above. She paused, squinting into the loft where the organ pipes towered. There it was, a faint red dot, blinking, watching. The camera. She froze. Her heart thudded in her chest like a bass drum. Too loud for comfort. For a full 5 seconds, she stood there, paralyzed, violated, exposed. That night she didn't finish her run-through. She left the chapel before the echo of her own voice had faded. Her hoodie wrapped tightly around her head. She slipped back into the shadows, praying it hadn't captured everything. But it had. By morning she woke to chaos. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. At first she thought it was just more anonymous hate from the usual suspects. But this time something felt bigger, different. She opened her messages. Video of finalist singing unauthorized in chapel, staff furious. Church girl breaks rules to cheat final showcase. Who does she think she is? She clicked the link, and there it was. The chapel footage. Not the version she had rehearsed with pride and pain, but one edited to appear like she was defying the school, breaking into sacred grounds to train unfairly. The captions spun a different tale. Rehearsal saboteur. Entitled Vocalist Breaks Rules for Clout. Her voice played in the background, but not the full song. Only a portion, carefully chosen to seem shrill, dramatic, unpolished. They had turned her vulnerability into a weapon. They had turned her gift into misconduct. The comments were even worse. She's desperate for attention, always playing the victim. If she spent more time practicing than crying, maybe she'd deserve her spot. Tears stung her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. She walked across campus like a ghost. Whispers followed. Even those who hadn't seen the video knew something had happened. Conversations dropped when she passed. Groups huddled at lockers. Suddenly went silent. She felt surveilled. She was surveilled. Later that afternoon, she was called to Mr. Lanning's office again. He didn't waste time. "Makayla," he said with a rehearsed calm, "this incident has put us in a difficult position." She said nothing. Her jaw was clenched too tightly to speak. "You were recorded using private camp facilities during prohibited hours. That's not just a violation of campus policy, it's grounds for probation." Her lips parted, finally. "But no one ever told us the chapel was off limits." Mr. Lanning didn't flinch. "Intent doesn't excuse rule-breaking." "I wasn't sneaking, I was surviving." He shook his head. "The optics are poor, and now the board is watching. So here's what we're going to do. We'll let you keep your finalist slot, but only if you issue a public apology. Just something brief. Something that makes this disappear." He slid a sheet of paper across the desk. A prepared statement. Makayla picked it up with trembling fingers. "I apologize for violating rehearsal rules and distracting from the integrity of Halridge Conservatory's showcase. I acted independently, without clearance, and understand the importance of structure and discipline." It was cold, hollow, a confession of guilt she didn't feel. "You expect me to lie." "I expect you to play smart," Mr. Lanning replied. She left his office with the letter in hand, but made no promises. That night she sat in the chapel again, lights off, staring at the darkened pews. She didn't sing. She didn't move. She just listened to the silence, to the weight of decisions heavy in her chest. Back at the dorms, Elena finally broke the tension. "You're not going to sign it, are you?" Makayla looked at her. There was a tremor in her eyes, like Elena already knew the answer. "They don't want me to be quiet," Makayla said. "They want me to be grateful, even for the damage." Elena exhaled. "You're not the only one they've done this to."
What?
But Elena wouldn't say more. She just walked to the window, pulled the blinds shut, and put her headphones on. Later that night, when the rest of the campus slept, Makayla tiptoed out and walked straight to Ms. Dolores's studio. The retired singer sat in her velvet armchair, drinking lukewarm tea, watching footage of opera classics on her old TV. She looked up when Makayla walked in, without surprise. "They finally found a way to make you the villain," she said, her voice like a weathered cello. Makayla sat down on the rug. "They want me to apologize." Miss Dolores didn't speak right away. Instead, she reached into her drawer and pulled out a flash drive. "What's that?" "Your voice. From night 3 in the chapel." Makayla froze. "You recorded me." Miss Dolores smiled faintly.
No.
"But I know who did. Let's just say, not every camera at this camp works for the people in charge." She slid the drive into her laptop. The sound that played filled the room like incense. Makayla's voice, unedited, unbroken, in full, every breath, every note. It wasn't just singing. It was a story. It was grief in motion. Strength whispered in octaves. "This," Ms. Dolores said, "is what they're afraid of. So we're going to let someone else hear it." Makayla blinked. "Who?" "A friend," she replied. "Used to work at a radio station in D.C. He has an ear for truth, and a platform. Small, but growing. He owes me a favor." Before Makayla could respond, Miss Dolores uploaded the audio and hit send. The deed was done. Whatever came next was out of their hands. The following afternoon, while Makayla sat alone beneath the sycamore tree, outside rehearsal hall, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new text. She opened it. It read only, "Heard your voice. I know what they're doing. Keep your head up. We'll talk soon." Below it, a contact card. Marcus D., producer. Makayla opened the producer's profile and froze. His last project had been a documentary called Silenced: How They Break Black Talent. A secret mentor emerges and reveals the cost of survival. Makayla stared at the contact card on her screen, like it was a mirage. Marcus D., producer. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she hesitated. She looked him up first. A Google search brought pages of interviews, op-eds, and articles. Marcus Duval wasn't just a producer. He was a disruptor, a former classical pianist turned whistleblower. Duval had once been a finalist at a prestigious conservatory before being blackballed for exposing racist admissions criteria. His documentary Silenced, How They Break Black Talent, had gone viral, and in response 3 board members of a National Arts Academy had resigned. Makayla's stomach twisted. She clicked his latest interview. "I don't rescue artists," he said on camera. "I just remind them what fire they're made from." She finally responded. "Makayla, this is Makayla. I don't know what's happening, but I think they're trying to bury me." The reply came less than a minute later. "Marcus, I know. Meet me outside the service entrance by the faculty lounge. Tonight, midnight. No one can know." That night, under cover of clouds, Makayla crept past dorm curfew. She wore a dark hoodie, soft sneakers, and avoided every patch of gravel that might give her away. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a warning. Behind the faculty lounge, a man leaned against the shadows. Early 40s, sharp eyes, skin the shade of carved mahogany. He didn't flinch when she arrived. "You came," he said softly. "You knew they'd do this to me?" she asked. Marcus nodded once. "They've done it to better singers than you," he said, "and louder ones. But they've never seen someone like you walk through their door with your voice and your rage still intact." Makayla frowned. "I don't feel intact." "That's because you haven't used what they gave you, yet." He gestured for her to follow. They slipped into a utility room behind the faculty wing, filled with sound panels, dusty speakers, and outdated equipment. It was the one place on campus the administration no longer monitored. Too old, too forgotten. He laid out a tablet and showed her something that turned her stomach. A spreadsheet. Names, ages, complaints. Makayla scrolled down the list. Over 40 black and brown students over the past 10 years. All had submitted reports of bullying, racism, sabotage, or harassment. None had been followed up. Next to each name was a red stamp, non-returning. "This is Halridge's real audition process," Marcus said. "They audition your silence." Makayla felt the blood rush to her ears. "So why are you here?" she asked. "Because your voice leaked," Marcus said. "But not the fake clip, the real one. I've never seen a sound travel like that in years. You cracked something open. They can't erase you now, not unless you let them." Makayla lowered her eyes. "But how do I prove it? They're going to twist everything." Marcus smiled. "You don't prove it. You document it." From his backpack he handed her a small metallic clip the size of a dime. "A mic?" she asked. "Smaller than your thumbnail. Stick it inside a hair bead. Nobody will notice. Record everything, even things that feel small." Makayla nodded, a quiet fire growing behind her ribs. "And your roommate?" he asked. "Elena? She's afraid," Marcus said. "But fear is another form of truth." For the next few days, Makayla lived a double life. By day she attended rehearsals, watching Savannah float across rooms like royalty, while eyes darted toward her with veiled suspicion. She answered questions in clipped tones, lowered her volume, and smiled only when necessary. By night she met Marcus again. Sometimes at the utility room, sometimes in the back of the old science lab, where he trained her. Breath control drills, vocal resistance exercises, emotional tempo alignment. Not just singing, weaponizing her voice. "Your job isn't to sound good," Marcus said. "Your job is to sound like you survived." One evening Makayla returned to her room and found Elena sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her phone with both hands. Her face was pale. "Elena?" Elena looked up, then down again. Finally she whispered, "I saw something. In a group chat. Savannah's crew. They've been planning stuff for days. Memes, edits, rumors." Makayla sat down beside her. "Can you send it to me?" "I already did something better," Elena said, almost breathless. "I leaked it." "What?" "I copied their chats. The racism, the threats, everything. Sent it to a private Reddit board for student whistleblowers." Makayla's stomach dropped. "Lena, that's dangerous. I used a VPN. No one will know it was me." But they did. Within 48 hours, the fallout hit. Faculty received anonymous reports of cyberbullying within the camp. IT tracked it back to the Reddit post. And while the original usernames from the group chat were partially redacted, one device ID pinged from a dorm room. Makayla. The camp accused her of orchestrating the leak. They summoned her to the administrative office. She sat across from Mr. Lanning again, this time joined by the camp's PR advisor, an illegal compliance officer. "You've caused disruption. Mr. Lanning said, steepling his fingers. You're sowing division. That's not what Halridge stands for. I didn't post anything, she replied quietly. And I didn't write what those students said. Intent is irrelevant. Damage has been done. Parents are upset. Sponsors are concerned. Makayla could feel her body floating, a surreal numbness overtaking her. We're officially removing you from the final showcase, Mr. Lanning continued. You'll still receive credit for your coursework, but your performance slot will be reassigned. She blinked. Without a hearing? Without even asking if I— This is our final decision, he said. As she left the room, everything felt blurry. Students avoided her in the halls. Her name was scratched off the finalist board by morning. No announcement was made. Just erasure. But when she returned to her room, Elena was waiting. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't think they'd trace it to you. Makayla nodded slowly. I think they always plan to. That night, Marcus texted one sentence. They've erased you from the program, but I've got a bigger stage. They took away her voice, so she made silence scream. The announcement board in the main courtyard bore the news like a wound. No explanation, no note, just subtraction. Makayla's name was gone. In its place, Savannah Klein, original rendition, backed track. The change was printed in glossy ink, already laminated, as if it had always been that way. Makayla didn't cry. Not this time. She folded the last of her clothes in her dorm drawer with slow precision, hands quiet, back straight. The window beside her glowed with the late afternoon sun, golden and soft, as if the world had decided to look beautiful just to mock her. Outside, buzz filled the walkways. Students rushed in costume, stylists fluttered between rehearsal rooms, and vocal coaches barked last-minute instructions into earpieces. Final showcase day was a campus holiday. Parents flew in, donors appeared. Faculty wore navy blazers like judges at a talent tribunal. Makayla stayed in. She lay on her bunk fully clothed, shoes on, backpack resting beside her like a bodyguard. Her eyes stared at the ceiling tiles above, but her mind was somewhere else. She imagined the stage, the lights, the hush before a note, the space where her voice should have been. She thought of her mother, who'd taken extra shifts to buy her plane ticket, of her brother, who'd promised to stream her performance, of her grandmother, who'd once whispered, "They'll make you earn it twice," and still try to call it a gift. Then came a knock, soft, measured. The door opened, and Miss Dolores stepped inside. Her presence changed the temperature of the room, warm, steady. They replaced you, she said plainly. Makayla nodded once. And you're going to let them win? Makayla turned her head. They already did. Dolores stepped closer. She set a flash drive on the nightstand. They didn't erase your voice. They only erased your slot. Makayla didn't respond. Dolores continued. There are students asking questions, staff whispering behind locked doors. You lit a match, Makayla, and I've been collecting the kindling. Makayla sat up slowly. What are you talking about? Dolores smiled faintly. A performance can happen in more than one place. Before Makayla could ask anything more, Dolores slipped out the door. Backstage, Savannah stood in full shimmer, a silver dress that looked more engineered than tailored. Her blonde hair coiled in soft spirals. A small mic was clipped to her collarbone, and a tech assistant ran a quick sound check while she hummed something deliberately overdone. This is gonna be epic, one of her friends said, applying lip gloss nearby. Like a star is born. Savannah smirked, adjusting her in-ear monitor. That girl should thank me. Her little viral clip gave this camp more attention than ever. Now it's in the right hands. She stepped up to the curtain. The audience murmured. Donors filled the first 3 rows. Parents leaned forward in their chairs. The lights dimmed, and the host took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our 7th showcase finalist, Savannah Klein. Applause burst through the hall. Savannah walked confidently to the center, the floor beneath her shimmering like water under stage light. The music cued, a synthesized beat, something vaguely soulful, but painfully manufactured. She began to sing. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Her voice was polished but empty. No ache, no grit, no soul. Auto-tune masked imperfections, but not the hollowness. Some audience members nodded politely. Some leaned into their programs. It was forgettable. Back in her dorm, Makayla watched the live stream for 10 seconds, then closed the window. The ache in her chest tightened. She wasn't bitter. She was certain. Certain they were selling flash instead of fire. And they thought no one would notice. But someone did. In the hallway behind the stage, a small group of students gathered by the fire exit. Whispers passed between them. Did you hear what happened? She didn't even break the rules. That chapel wasn't off limits. I heard her audio got leaked by faculty. She was the only one who sounded real. Word spread like static through the crowd. Miss Dolores had left USB drives in the media booth. The uncut chapel footage, the full performance, Makayla's untouched voice, had been uploaded quietly to a side screen during intermission. The tech crew had seen it. And once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. People were asking, why wasn't she on stage? A few students broke from the seating rows. Some looked up her name. Her video, the real one, had resurfaced online. The views were ticking upward by the second. One girl whispered, "That wasn't a leak. That was sabotage." Makayla still hadn't moved from her bed until her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Check the live stream. Right now. She hesitated, then opened it. The showcase was transitioning to final remarks. The host took the stage again, this time flanked by faculty members. "Before we announce this year's winners," he began, "we'd like to thank all of our finalists." Suddenly the lights in the auditorium dimmed. The projector behind the host sputtered. Static. Then a new video cue appeared on screen. Unfiltered. Uninvited. Unforgettable. The screen lit up with a still frame, a close-up of Makayla in the chapel, eyes closed, hands trembling. Then the footage played. No edits. No captions. Just her voice. Rich. Sacred. Defiant. A low murmur ran through the room. The judges sat upright. Parents stared. The host stumbled over his cue cards. Somewhere backstage, Savannah's face blanched. And just as the final chorus began, the lights in the entire auditorium went out. In the pitch black, one voice rang out from the center aisle. Raw, live, unmistakable. It was Makayla. They tried to cut her off. But truth doesn't need permission. Darkness swallowed the auditorium. For a split second, everything went still. Not silent, still. It was a breath held by 400 people at once. Parents, judges, faculty, students, all suspended in the blackout, unsure whether to panic or wait. Then, a voice pierced the dark. No microphone, no backing track, no introduction. Just a voice. Unfiltered, clear, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Gasps rippled through the room like static. People turned toward the center aisle, where a figure stood, barely visible at first, illuminated only by the faint emergency exit lights. Makayla Jordan. No stage lights. No cue. Just her in a single defiant breath stretched into melody. Her voice didn't ask for attention. It commanded it. Somewhere backstage, someone shouted, "Get her off. Kill the feed." But no one moved. Not yet. Makayla walked slowly toward the stage, singing with every step. The room was soundless, except for her. She wasn't just performing. She was testifying. Her voice cracked once, not from lack of control, but from too much feeling. She didn't blink. Her eyes locked ahead, her chin high. Audience members rose to their feet. Some instinctively began recording, lifting phones toward the dark. Makayla reached center stage. She didn't wait for permission. She kept singing. Pastoral scene of the gallant South. The lyrics, acidic and heavy, poured like molasses over the silent crowd. Some parents shifted uncomfortably. Others looked down at their programs. But they didn't leave. They couldn't. Makayla's voice had them pinned. Backstage, Savannah stood frozen, watching the chaos unfold on the backstage monitor. Her hands trembled, her perfect curls now damp with sweat. She wasn't even supposed to be here, she muttered. Why isn't anyone stopping her? A staff tech tried to power up the projector again, but the system was locked. The video that played before the blackout had jammed the entire feed. The chapel footage had gone viral. Live. Now Makayla was live too. From the corner of the room, a low chant began, a whisper at first. One voice, then two, then 20. Let her sing. Let her sing. It grew louder. Faculty whispered frantically. Mr. Lanning moved to the side aisle, motioning to security. 2 guards stepped toward the stage, but the crowd shifted. Several students moved from their seats, not blocking the guards, but occupying the space between them and Makayla.
No shouting, no threats.
Just present, a wall of silent resistance. Makayla reached the final verse. Her voice cracked again, but this time it sounded like thunder in a cathedral. She sang from a place deeper than lungs, from memory, from legacy, from pain. She finished the final note and didn't move. Silent. Then, applause. Not polite. Explosive. People on their feet. Some were crying. Some just stood stunned. Others recorded. The moment spread across social media within minutes. Church girls sang in the dark and lit the whole room. They tried to cut her mic. She used her soul. Makayla Jordan. Security moved again. One guard stepped forward. Makayla turned her head slightly, and just before he reached her, a voice shouted from the balcony, "Leave her alone." All heads turned. A student stood, holding a phone to the air. On screen, mirrored on dozens of feeds, was an email leak, one sent by Howard's staff. Dated 2 weeks earlier. Subject line: finalist slot considerations, strategic optics. Text: Makayla Jordan's presence may create short-term buzz, but risks long-term donor discomfort. Recommend removal post-viral spike. Gasps echoed across the room. Screens everywhere lit up with the email. One parent in the front row stood. "Is that how you run this program?" she demanded. A judge stood next to her, confused. "I never saw this email. Who signed off on this?" Mr. Lanning bolted toward the side door. Another judge grabbed the mic, still hot from Savannah's performance. "I believe we owe Miss Jordan an apology." The room was chaos, but Makayla stood calm at its center, unmoved, eyes still fixed ahead. The stage manager's headset crackled, and a voice said, "We have national press on the line. They want to speak with her now." One girl's truth forced the crowd to choose sides. For a moment it seemed the room had imploded. Phones up, mouths agape, judges whispering frantically. The crowd, electrified by Makayla's uninvited but soul-bearing performance, now shifted again, no longer spectators, but witnesses to something much larger than music. The leaked email blazed across dozens of screens, like a confession broadcast in high definition. Donor discomfort, removal post-viral spike. Those words pierced the polished atmosphere of Howard like broken glass. Makayla hadn't moved. She stood center stage, arms at her sides, breath slowing, sweat beading on her brow. The applause had stopped, not from disapproval, but from And then it happened. Someone in the balcony began to chant, "Makayla, Makayla." It wasn't shouted. It was sung. Rhythmic. Intentional. Another voice joined. Then a third. Soon, the auditorium pulsed with a rising wave. "Makayla, Makayla." Students, parents, even 2 of the younger finalists on stage began clapping, eyes wide in disbelief. Makayla turned her head slowly, her vision swimming. She had no mic, no backing, just 4 syllables ringing out like drums of justice. Backstage, Savannah's mouth twisted in disbelief. "They're cheering for her?" she hissed, staring at the feed on the monitor. "This is a joke. I sang my set. I deserve the ovation." One of the assistant producers whispered nervously, "Savannah, don't go out there right now." But she was already moving, heels clicking with purpose, face painted in false confidence. Savannah stormed past the curtain and onto the stage. Her arrival was met not with applause, but confusion. She grabbed the mic Makayla had never needed. "I just want to say, this program is about talent," Savannah declared, her voice slightly trembling. "And I worked hard. We all did. This isn't supposed to be a protest." The crowd didn't respond. They just stared. Savannah pressed on. "Howard has rules, structure, and no one's above them." Booths rang out, loud, sustained. A few audience members began shouting, "Sit down. You had your turn. Let her speak."
Makayla didn't flinch.
Savannah's voice cracked under the pressure. "You people are just reacting to drama." One parent in the front row stood, arms crossed. "No, we're reacting to truth." Savannah's face fell. She turned and rushed off the stage, the curtain closing behind her with an audible thud. Suddenly, the main screen at the back of the stage flickered again. Not from the media team, from an override. It displayed a group chat window. Usernames blurred, except one. Claim Queen 9. "Let's see how loud she sings when no one believes her. Black girls always make it about pain. I'm sick of that narrative. Just wait. She'll fold like the others." Gasps erupted. Fingers pointed. Phones began recording again. Another screen popped up. A spreadsheet, similar to the one Marcus had shown Makayla. A list of students, all of color, who had left the program prematurely, flagged as non-returning for vague infractions. Finally a video played. A grainy clip of Makayla training in the chapel, but not the edited version. This was the raw file. Her face in frame, voice crisp, breath unbroken. And in the corner, Marcus's voice coaching her off camera. Breathe from your gut. Don't run from the ache. Use it. The room sat in stunned reverence. Mr. Lanning, seated at the edge of the stage, jumped to his feet. This is an unauthorized breach of protocol, he shouted, red-faced. We are suspending the showcase immediately. But no one moved. No one obeyed. As he tried to exit stage left, 3 students stepped in front of him. Not aggressively. Just there. Present. Another judge leaned into his mic. Sir, sit down. You've lost control of the room. Lanning turned furious but suddenly realized who was watching. The donors. The press. The board. He yanked his earpiece off and stormed out the side door, shoving past a young technician who barely dodged out of the way. The moment he disappeared, applause erupted again. This time, not for Makayla's voice, for her presence, for her refusal to vanish. Backstage, Ms. Dolores stood watching the scene unfold, arms crossed, a quiet pride resting behind her eyes. You see? She whispered, not to anyone in particular. They don't choose silence, not when they hear the truth. Makayla was ushered to a side corridor. Students patted her shoulders. Some hugged her. One parent handed her a card and whispered, if you ever want to record, call us. You've got gold. She barely made it through the hall before a woman in a headset approached breathlessly. We're with WNN, she said. National broadcast. We just saw the live stream feed. Our producer wants you live tomorrow morning. Studio in Albany, prime time. Interview and performance. Makayla blinked. Not because she was surprised, but because the tide had turned, and she was still standing. Makayla's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. You're about to go national, but the system you exposed, it's coming for you. She was told to stay quiet. Now the world is listening. The sun rose quietly over the dormitories of Halridge Conservatory. But inside room 2B, Makayla Jordan wasn't asleep. She sat upright in her bunk, knees pulled to her chest, earbuds in, phone screen glowing dimly. The NPR interview was about to air. A soft piano intro opened the segment, then a familiar voice. Alyssa Monroe, host of NPR's Youth in Focus. Today, Alyssa said, we bring you a story that isn't just about music, it's about who gets to be heard. Makayla's throat tightened. She hadn't known how much they would include. But when the next sound played, the raw clip of her chapel rehearsal, she heard her soul echo through national radio. No edit, no cuts, just her. The silence after her final note on the recording was longer than she remembered. Then Alyssa's voice returned. What began as a camp audition turned into a cultural reckoning. Makayla Jordan's performance, which was briefly buried, has now gone viral, not because it was controversial, but because it was honest. She continued, narrating Makayla's trajectory, the fake videos, the probation, the leaked chats, the impromptu protest performance, the betrayal by adults, the courage of students, the audience who chose truth. Then came the line that shook Makayla the most. She was told to stay quiet, and she did. But even her silence made noise. Makayla turned to the window and exhaled slowly. The campus was still asleep. But not for long. By 10 a.m., the world was no longer just watching. It was responding. Hashtags surged across every platform. Let Makayla sing. The mic. They fear. Voice of Truth. The original video from the final showcase, her uninvited, unamplified performance, was now the top trending clip on Twitter and TikTok. Then came the tweets. Ava DuVernay. That's not just a voice. That's a reckoning. Makayla Jordan, you moved us.
Hey John Legend. When truth sings, the room changes. I hear you, Makayla.
Zendaya. This girl's bravery. Chills. Screenshots of the leaked group chats began circulating with captions like, "This is what Black excellence fights through." Comment threads overflowed with support from activists, educators, and even former Halridge students who had once left quietly, now emboldened to speak. The school administration tried damage control. Too late. By noon, 4 major donors to Halridge's annual gala released a joint statement. Until Halridge provides full transparency and accountability, we are suspending all funding. Parents demanded an open forum. Board members began distancing themselves publicly. Inside the camp, a shift was unfolding. Savannah's circle, once untouchable, was now radioactive. One by one, her clique's accounts went private. Carly Doon, Savannah's best friend, was suspended after her direct involvement in editing the deepfake video was exposed. Another girl fled the dorm early that morning, bags in tow, avoiding eye contact. Savannah didn't leave her room, but Makayla wasn't interested in watching their downfall. She had other things to focus on. In the media suite at WNN Albany, Makayla sat under soft studio lights, hands clasped in her lap. Her mother sat behind the camera, cheeks damp with silent tears. Marcus stood just offset, arms crossed like a quiet sentry. The anchor leaned forward with practiced poise. "Makayla, what made you decide to sing that night, when the lights went out?" Makayla took a breath. "I didn't decide," she said. "It was already decided by every girl like me who walked into rooms like that and got laughed at. I just sang because silence wasn't enough anymore." A pause. "And what do you want from all this attention now?" Makayla's voice didn't waver. "I don't want attention. I want change. Not just for me, for the next girl they think they can erase." The interview aired live, and immediately became the #1 video on YouTube, within 3 hours. Back on campus, Hellridge began to fracture. Students split into two camps, those who continued rehearsing like nothing had happened, and those who began organizing. A group of 12 formed a coalition, the Echo Collective, to demand transparency, inclusive curriculum, and mental health support for marginalized students. Makayla didn't lead them, but they used her name like a banner. In classroom conversations, in student meetings, in chants that echoed across the quad. She sang for us, now we speak for her. That night, Makayla returned to the chapel one final time. Not to sing, to listen. She walked past the pews, her hand brushing the edge of the first row. She sat in the front and closed her eyes. The air still held traces of her voice. The stained glass flickered with moonlight. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A call. Unknown number. She answered. A woman's voice, smooth, clear. "Is this Makayla Jordan?" "Yes. This is Dr. Renee Bishop, from Juilliard." Makayla sat up straight. Dr. Bishop continued, her voice gentle but firm. "We've been following your story, not just what happened to you, but how you responded. That's not just talent. That's vision." Makayla's breath caught in her throat. "We'd like to talk about your future," Dr. Bishop said. "Not as a Hellridge student, but as a Juilliard scholar." Makayla blinked. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying we'd like to offer you a full scholarship. No audition required." Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't let them fall. "Not yet." "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Dr. Bishop replied. "Thank you for reminding us what art is supposed to do." Just before the call ended, Dr. Bishop added softly, "But be careful. Institutions don't like being challenged, even when they're wrong." Juilliard wanted her. Camp tried to stop it. Makayla didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in her bunk, staring at the sliver of moonlight crawling across the ceiling. The call from Dr. Bishop echoed in her ears like an encore she never expected. A full scholarship. Immediate enrollment. No audition. The words had landed in her chest like thunder. She had no idea how to explain the feeling of being wanted. Not conditionally, not performatively, but fully. She finally drifted into sleep just before dawn, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. By 9 a.m., the world knew. Juilliard released a formal statement. Makayla Jordan is a rare voice in American arts. Her strength, resilience, and raw brilliance embody what we believe music should represent. We're honored to welcome her to our institution, effective immediately. The post went viral within the hour. Major media outlets quoted it. Blogs dissected it. Twitter exploded. NY Times Arts. In a historic move, Juilliard bypasses audition to honor young black vocalist silenced at elite camp. I Black Excellence Daily. This is how you change the narrative. I'm Marcus Duval. We build stages. They try to block doors. But talent always finds a way. At Hellridge, however, something colder was brewing. Makayla was summoned again to the admin wing. This time she didn't walk in nervous. She walked in prepared. Marcus sat beside her. Miss Dolores stood near the back, arms folded, watching like a hawk. Mr. Lanning, flanked by 2 legal advisors, cleared his throat. "We're aware Juilliard has made Makayla an offer," he began. "However, we've been contacted by their administrative liaison for clarification on her disciplinary standing." Makayla's stomach turned. She saw it coming before the words even left his mouth. "It is our duty," he continued, to provide full disclosure, including reports regarding unauthorized facility use, leaked private student information, and conduct concerns during the showcase. Ms. Dolores took a sharp step forward. You mean the chapel she was never officially barred from? The footage you never disclosed you had? Or the cyberbullying she endured from your top students? Mr. Lanning didn't blink. We understand passions are high, but facts matter. Marcus placed a thick folder on the table. Here are your facts, he said. Affidavits from multiple staff members, transcripts of internal chat leaks, evidence of coordinated defamation, and audio from your office. Makayla looked up. Audio? Marcus didn't flinch. You weren't the only one recording, he said to Lanning. Transparency works both ways. Lanning's legal aide leaned in, whispered something. He turned pale. This is a legal matter now, the advisor said. Further discussion is ill-advised. But the damage was already done. By noon, Marcus and Dolores had launched a counter-offensive. National news outlets received exclusive documents. A CNN anchor called it an education system whistleblower's dream. The Washington Post ran the headline, Silencing Makayla, How One Camp Tried to Bury a Voice and Lost Control of the Story. An emergency board meeting at Halridge was called. 2 faculty members resigned before it began. One donor announced a $100,000 grant to Makayla's new foundation for underrepresented musicians. Juilliard released a follow-up tweet. We stand by our decision. No amount of revisionist reporting will change that. She's ours. The internet cheered. But inside Makayla's chest, the weight of it all settled differently. She hadn't won. Not really. She had survived. And survival came with scars. That night, after returning from interviews and lawyer meetings, Makayla sat by the reflecting pool behind the practice halls. Alone. She dipped her fingers into the water, watching the ripples distort her reflection. Was this what victory felt like? Or was it just relief? A small buzz pulled her from thought. Her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. This isn't over. Watch your back. No name, no context. Just cold warning. She stared at it for a long time. Then she pressed delete, because whoever sent it didn't know what she'd already survived. That night someone slipped a letter under her dorm door. No return name, just a black envelope, and one sentence inside. You've embarrassed powerful people. Going viral changed her life. But not always for the better. For days after the Juilliard announcement, Makayla could hardly go anywhere without being recognized. Strangers stopped her in airports. Reporters camped outside her dorm building. Paparazzi showed up near the campus library, hoping for a glimpse of the black girl who silenced the stage. Her name flooded headlines. Her photo was stitched into social media memes, articles, protest signs. Her inbox burst with collaborations, sponsorship offers, podcast requests. Everyone wanted a piece of the girl who broke the system, but no one asked how the system had broken her. At first, the attention felt validating. After years of being overlooked, doubted, and mocked, being seen felt like air after drowning. Brands offered endorsements. Influencers tried to align their causes with hers. A streaming platform wanted to feature her story arc in a new series about Gen Z disruptors. But Makayla quickly realized that being seen wasn't the same as being safe. Every word she posted was dissected. Her captions were analyzed like scripture. Her tone in interviews was critiqued. Too soft, too angry, too polished. When she tweeted, "We deserve rooms built for our voices, not cages to decorate with them," she received 60,000 retweets and nearly as many hate comments. The darker messages came next. Anonymous accounts sent threats disguised as jokes. One message read, "You got your prize. Now go back where you came from." Another, "At Juilliard changes their mind when they see who you really are." Makayla stopped sleeping. Her fingers hovered over her phone every night, rereading the same messages, unable to press delete. But the worst came when the harassment spread to her family. Her younger brother's school was contacted by a parent warning them that radical media attention could be dangerous. Her mother's job received an anonymous letter. Maybe she raised a daughter who can sing, but at what cost? Makayla sobbed in her dorm bathroom, phone clutched in one hand, toothbrush still foaming in the other. She had opened her mouth once, and now the world wouldn't let her breathe. Marcus urged her to step back. "You don't owe anyone 24/7 visibility," he said. "Fame without boundaries is surveillance." Ms. Dolores was more blunt. "They love you brave. Not messy, not tired, not real, but you're all of that, and more. Let them squirm." Makayla nodded. but the weight kept pressing down. She wanted to sing, not to carry an entire movement on her back. Then came a shift. Out of the chaos, something beautiful emerged. A group of black student musicians, some from Howridge, others from elite arts programs across the country, reached out to her. Many had faced microaggressions, institutional bias, or worse, they were tired of surviving in silence. They called themselves the rest note, a reference to the silence between musical phrases, the breath before the rise. Makayla met them on Zoom one night. 15 faces, 15 stories, different cities, same struggle. A violinist in Chicago who was told she was too soulful for Mozart. A dancer in Atlanta, forced to wear a lighter shade of foundation on stage. A pianist from Oregon, who'd been dropped from a showcase because her afro distracted the audience. Makayla listened. Then she cried. Not from pain, from recognition. They weren't looking for a savior, just someone who'd already dared to speak. Together they started work on a project, a nationwide youth concert titled Unmuted, a virtual performance blending classical, soul, spoken word, and protest music. Each artist would share a piece inspired by their resistance, and Makayla, she would headline it. Just as momentum swelled, the backlash did too. On a cloudy Thursday morning, Makayla woke to 37 missed messages. Someone had leaked unreleased audition footage from her first week at Howridge. But it wasn't just a performance. It was before she sang. A clip filmed secretly during the pre-audition briefing. In it, Makayla sat nervously by herself, head lowered, doodling lyrics in her notebook. Behind her, Savannah could be seen whispering to the judges and laughing. One judge joked off mic, "Let's get a viral clip. She looks like she'll crack." The footage cut there. But the damage had been done. The leak reframed the entire narrative, not as a girl who broke through, but as a setup. Media scrambled. Did Howridge orchestrate Makayla's failure? New leaks show bias before black vocalist even sang. Howridge released a statement denying all involvement. The judge caught in the video resigned for personal reasons. But the internet wasn't satisfied. Makayla wasn't either. The footage confirmed what she had always felt. Her story had never been about her voice alone. It was about their expectation of her silence. Hours later, a hacker group called Echo Trace claimed responsibility for the leak and hinted there was more to come. What they cut out proved the racism they denied. Makayla stared at the screen, heart pounding, as the footage looped again. It was her, sitting alone in the corner of the Howridge rehearsal room, her backpack at her feet, her eyes down, a spiral notebook in her lap. In the background, the voices murmured, unclear at first, until the subtitles filled in the blanks. Judge 1. She looks nervous. This'll be a short one. Judge 2. Let's get a viral failure clip. Put her in the second half. The rest was silent. But the subtext roared. This wasn't just an edit. It wasn't just shady behavior. It was intentional sabotage. Makayla's body went numb. Not because she didn't expect this, but because deep down, she had felt it in her bones from the very beginning. They hadn't underestimated her. They targeted her. The video had been posted anonymously by Echo Trace, the same hacker group that had leaked her pre-audition clip. Their message came attached. You weren't wrong, Makayla. They set you up, and this isn't the only footage they buried. The internet went nuclear. Within hours, the tape made its way from Twitter to CNN. Commentators debated the ethics of elite arts programs. Legal analysts began speculating about breach of contract, discrimination, and systemic malpractice. But the most damning coverage came from black-owned media platforms. Black culture now. This isn't a surprise. It's a pattern. This time, the camera caught it. At her voice unfiltered, Makayla Jordan didn't just out-sing her peers. She outlasted a system designed to humiliate her. Howridge responded with a cold, sterile statement. We are conducting an internal review. We do not condone bias or misconduct of any kind. But the court of public opinion wasn't waiting. Protesters appeared outside Howridge's gates. Within 48, former students came forward with their own stories. Most anonymous, some not. A black alumna named Leah Adams posted a 3-minute video describing how she was removed from the jazz program after asking why her arrangement of Billie Holiday's God Bless the Child was deemed too political. It had happened before. It would have happened again. But now, it couldn't be hidden. Inside Makayla's dorm, the atmosphere was hushed. Even her critics had gone quiet. Savannah hadn't shown her face in days. Faculty members walked halls with heads down. Rumors whispered of emergency meetings, PR consultants, and a board that was scrambling to control the damage. Then it happened. 6 board members resigned. The head of the program, Mr. Lanning, was removed under the term involuntary leave. An independent civil rights investigator was appointed to audit the conservatory's admissions and disciplinary systems. Makayla didn't smile at the news. She didn't celebrate. She simply stared at her reflection in the mirror. Not out of vanity, out of astonishment, because the girl looking back wasn't afraid anymore. She was still adjusting to the idea that power didn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it felt like silence that finally listened. That afternoon, as she returned from rehearsal with the Rest Note Collective, her phone buzzed with a New York number. She answered. "Miss Jordan," a smooth voice said. "My name is DeMarcus King. I'm a documentary filmmaker. You may know some of my work, America's Quietest Pain, Second Skin, or Sidelined." Makayla didn't speak immediately. She knew the names. All of them. Award-winning, raw, unflinching portraits of black voices buried in white institutions. King continued. "We're developing a multi-part series on voices that shook systems. In your story, it's not just timely, it's essential." Makayla sat down on the edge of her bed, clutching the phone. "I'm not sure what I am anymore," she admitted. "Student, symbol, singer. It's all blurred." King's tone softened. "That's the story we want to tell. Not just the fight, the aftermath, the cost of being heard." Makayla's fingers curled around the edge of the comforter. "And what would you need from me?" "Just your truth," King replied, "and permission to let the world see what they tried to cut out." Makayla didn't answer right away, but in her mind the cut tape still played, over and over. Makayla closed her eyes and whispered into the phone, "I'll do it, but only if I get to keep the final word." She was never meant to win on their stage, so she built her own. Makayla sat in a dimly lit editing studio in Brooklyn. Headphones on, her face reflected faintly in the monitor's glow. On the screen before her, a younger version of herself, sitting alone in that first Howard audition room, scribbling in her notebook, waiting for a system to decide if her voice had value. She watched herself breathe. Wait, survive, then speak. The final version of the documentary was nearly complete. Titled Uncut: The Voice They Tried to Mute. It was a raw, haunting, deeply personal narrative, and Makayla didn't just narrate it. She shaped it. DeMarcus King kept his word. She wasn't a subject. She was a co-author. In the final scene, the camera didn't fade out on applause or protest signs. It ended on her face. Still, unflinching, present. That was the power. Not just being loud, being unignorable. By the time Sundance accepted the film, momentum had already swelled. Makayla had partnered with members of the Rest Note and several activist-minded students from conservatories across the country. Together, they launched a national arts initiative, Free Key, a hybrid of scholarship program, touring showcase, and mentorship circle. The mission? To create performance spaces where marginalized voices weren't just welcomed, they were sent. The application flooded with hundreds of submissions in the first week. Young singers, dancers, poets, composers, kids who had once whispered into corners now sent full-throated videos of their gifts. Makayla watched each one, not as a gatekeeper, but as a mirror. "You're not broken," she told one violinist during a mentorship call. "You're just playing in a system out of tune." Sundance week arrived like thunder. Makayla walked into the packed premiere hall in a floor-length navy coat, her hair braided into a crown that shimmered under the foyer lights. Her mother held her hand. Marcus walked a step behind. Ms. Dolores wore a velvet shawl and a proud, tired smile. Makayla had made it, but not through the door. She had made a new door. The lights dimmed. The film began. For 84 minutes the room was silent. No shuffling, no murmurs, just stillness. The kind earned by truth. There were gasps during the leaked tape segments. Quiet weeping when Makayla described the first time she felt her voice wasn't hers. Audible breaths caught during her chapel solo. Replayed in surround, enveloping the room in unvarnished sound. When the credits rolled, the crowd didn't immediately clap. They stood, one by one. Then all at once, the ovation shook the walls. Even critics wiped tears. Backstage, DeMarcus turned to her. "I've filmed dozens of voices," he said, "but yours didn't just speak. It refused to stop." Makayla smiled, but her hands were trembling. Not from fear, from relief, from standing in a room built on her terms. As she exited the stage through the side corridor, hands brushed hers. Praise, congratulations, thank yous poured in. She spotted faces from Halridge, students who had once gone silent when she walked past. Now they applauded her with eyes wide and honest. You carried us, one whispered, when we didn't even know we were broken. Makayla nodded, overwhelmed. She slipped out into the crisp night air, exhaling into the cold like she was finally breathing free. That's when someone tapped her shoulder. She turned. No face, just a hand. A black envelope pressed into hers. When she opened it, 6 words stared back. You'll never be safe again. Behind her, someone clicked a camera, not a paparazzi flash, but a quiet, deliberate shutter, and the sound felt like a warning. Fame made her powerful, and a target. The click of the camera still echoed in her ears when Makayla turned. The corridor behind her was empty, but something was different. The air, the silence, the letter in her hand wasn't fan mail. The 6 words, "You'll never be safe again," had been handwritten in sharp, deliberate strokes. Each letter pressed down with just enough pressure to leave indentations on the paper. She folded it and slipped it into her coat pocket. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She filed it away, not just in her pocket, but in the growing archive of things no one had warned her about when they said, "Your voice matters." Over the next 3 weeks, the shift became undeniable. Her car tires were slashed outside a recording studio in Harlem. A strange knock came at 3:17 a.m., outside her temporary apartment. No footsteps before, no retreating sound after. Email inboxes filled with threats masked in sarcasm. You're brave but not bulletproof. Juilliard lets anyone in these days. I see you're still loud. Don't forget we see everything. Makayla started sleeping in intervals. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined that camera flash again. Not paparazzi, not media, surveillance, intentional. Marcus tried to brush it off at first. They just want a reaction, he said. Don't give them the satisfaction. But that changed the morning his studio door was found pried open. Paint sprayed across the walls. A red X on every framed poster of black musicians he had mentored. A shattered laptop. A stolen hard drive. They didn't take anything of resale value. They took records, footage, files, voice samples, and on the mirror, in white chalk pen, "You trained a problem." That was the moment Marcus changed. No more calm, no more cool. He called in a contact at the FBI that afternoon. No press. Just protection. Makayla wasn't told the full extent of the investigation. But suddenly, she had agents checking her performance venues. A plainclothes security escort shadowed her from door to car. The next time she took a flight, she was guided through a private terminal. Not because she was famous, because she was threatened. Still, she performed. She honored every date on the unmuted tour. 15 cities. 12 sold-out halls. No apologies. At each venue she sang Strange Fruit as an encore, stripped of production, alone with her voice, facing the crowd without backup. Audiences didn't clap. They stood. Some held signs. Her voice, our mirror. Sing anyway. Let the girl speak. Makayla's courage transcended music. She became a national symbol, not because she survived a broken institution, but because she kept singing after. One morning, during rehearsal in Chicago, she got a text from Ms. Dolores. Turn on Channel 4. Now. Makayla rushed to the green room TV. Savannah Klein was seated in a news studio, flanked by her parents and an attorney. Her hair was toned down, her outfit soft. The host was gentle but firm. Savannah, you were once at the center of what some are calling one of the most racially charged arts scandals of the decade. What do you want to say today? Savannah looked at the camera. Her voice trembled. I want to apologize. She paused. To Makayla. To everyone I hurt. I didn't understand what I was part of. I made choices based on fear. I regret them. Makayla folded her arms. Her heart didn't race. She watched. The apology hit every note perfectly. The right level of humility. The perfect distance from denial. But it was Savannah's eyes that unsettled her. The moment the camera cut to a close-up, Makayla saw it. Not remorse. Not relief. Something colder. Calculating. Strategic. Like she wasn't apologizing. She was rebranding. The interview ended with the anchor asking, "And what's next for you?" Savannah smiled faintly and replied, "Redemption. Starting with a new project I've written, about silenced girls who fight back." Her final message wasn't a song. It was a reckoning. She wrote the first line on a napkin. It came to her in a cab, somewhere between Newark and downtown Manhattan, as rain smeared the windows, and her driver hummed along to an old Aretha Franklin track. Makayla leaned forward and whispered the words under her breath, "For every girl they laughed at." That was the spark. She didn't need a grand studio. She needed truth. Over the next 3 weeks, Makayla poured everything she'd never said, every withheld tear, every silenced rebuttal, every moment of shrinking herself to survive, into a single piece of music. Not a ballad, not a protest anthem, something more vulnerable, more dangerous. It wasn't pretty. It was honest. The lyrics unspooled like testimony. They told me to sing sweet. So I burned it down with harmony. You heard my notes, not my nose. I broke their stage with silence. They couldn't tune out. The song titled "For Every Girl They Laughed At" was released without warning. No teaser, no campaign, just a midnight drop. And within 24 hours, the world heard it. It charted not because of radio play, but because girls played it everywhere. In dorms, in schools, in TikToks layered with clips of protests, hallway struts, quiet tears, and bold grins. It became a trending audio for videos that showed resilience. A girl being called on last in class, then delivering brilliance. A black student adjusting her hair in a mirror, after classmates had mocked it. A clip of a young singer starting over mid-performance, breath shaking, and pushing through. Teachers shared it, marches echoed it, kids sang it in defiance and in healing. It wasn't just a song, it was a return. By spring, Halridge Conservatory quietly announced it would not reopen for the upcoming season. Enrollment had plummeted, donors vanished, the board was gutted, lawsuits mounted, 5, then 8, then 12. Makayla didn't gloat. She mourned, because even the flawed systems had held kids like her, however briefly, in a dream they thought was safe. But now it was over, and something new had begun. She graduated from Juilliard, standing tall in the front row, wearing a stole embroidered with the words, "Unapologetically heard." Her final recital brought the room to its feet, not because of volume, because of conviction. Later that year, she launched the Makayla Jordan Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding, mentoring, and spotlighting underrepresented artists across the country. It wasn't built for visibility. It was built for access. She declined a book deal, turned down a movie adaptation. She told DeMarcus King, "Let the doc speak. My story was never meant to end with me." Instead, she focused on the music. One evening, long after her tour ended, she returned to Halridge. The gates were locked.
The auditorium stood empty.
No banners, no buzz, just dust and wind. But the door creaked open. She stepped inside. The stage was just as she remembered. Curved floorboards, cracked spotlights, silence heavy as breath. Makayla walked to center stage. No one watched. No one filmed. She stood for a moment, then whispered, so softly it barely counted as sound. A note, delicate, defiant, free. It echoed in the stillness, like a truth finally returned to its home. She smiled, then turned, and walked away. As the auditorium faded to black, a single voice rang out. "This is only the beginning." If you've ever been silenced, overlooked, or told your voice didn't belong, Makayla's story is yours too. Because this isn't just about music, it's about every system built to break brilliance before it shines. Type yes if you believe in justice.